Guys, so we're doing a bit of an AMA today. I put forward a question on, well, an Ask Me Anything, rather, out to my Instagram followers as well as my Discord members. Got a handful of responses I wanted to select and show and share with you guys. With that, I'm also building this little bootleg flower thing. I was going to open this on camera, but unfortunately I got interrupted in my last recording, so I'm actually partway through the build, but I think you can understand exactly where I am. That said, really impressed with the quality and the colors here. This green matches Lego's green and is really high quality as well. It feels pretty much like Lego, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on, and then I can show you kind of the cool pieces with it as we go through, as we get to them. So with that out of the way, we're gonna take our first question. This is gonna be from Discord member Big Chillin', and they ask, what is your least favorite looking Kenoi? So growing up, I had an affinity for, obviously, the classic masks. I have for a very long time. I used to be a purist. I used to be someone who just really enjoyed the classic parts of Bionicle in general. And so I was never a huge fan of the Rao or the Matatu when I was young. However, those masks have really grown on me as I've gotten older. Now I actually love them quite a bit. When I was a kid, I'd look at the Rao and say, oh, it's too simple, or it looks like it's bald or something. And the Matatu looked overly detailed. It was very square and stuff. And so they just weren't appealing to my child brain, right? But actually growing up, I've grown to really love the shapes of them, especially for like water characters specifically. I think that the Rao and the Matatu are some of the strongest water masks. So if you're building characters of those elements, I love using those masks. And I'm talking specifically about the noble masks that came out in 2001. Currently, I would say my least favorite is probably, and this is not controversial, the 2008 Cow. It's just honestly kind of generic for Gali, personally. I'm not a huge fan of the shape of it in general. Even if the mask had been symmetric on both sides, I think it still would have been a cool looking mask, but it would not have been my favorite by any means. It has its uses for sure, and I have seen it used in interesting ways. And I can appreciate the added connection points up in the corners with the pinholes. I think it might be the only mask that actually has pinholes on it anywhere, as far as I can remember off the top of my head. But the mask itself just not that appealing to me. And Gali Mystica was the first Mystica that I got. I mostly got her for the shoulder pads that looked super cool and were really underutilized. I think they only appeared in like 2 sets. So yeah, and always in silver. So that's pretty much it. Now, I also am not a huge fan of the Akaku Nuva. Since I build Rahi and creatures in general, I don't really use a lot of asymmetric masks, so like truly asymmetric masks like that with the scopes and stuff. So that's why you haven't really seen like the Akaku used in any of my Rahi. It's just because they don't look as natural as some of the other masks. They don't blend their shaping in quite as well. They're perfectly fine masks, and I love the Akaku as it is. But the Akaku Nuva, it's still a fine mask, and again, I do think that there are builds where it looks very cool. It's an excellent mask in black, but it's just not my favorite for Kopaka specifically. So, the next question, and I'm at this stage right here, so it's got some leaves on ball joint, which is pretty cool. Actually comes with some of these ball pin pieces in that Mata green color too, and this green also seems like a really good match for Lego's dark green. The only downside is they did end up actually printing some of their information. On the side it says RMS INT, so I guess it's International, USA Incorporated, and then I guess that's a phone number. So that's definitely interesting. The brand for this is BlockTech, and the theme is Block Bouquet, just taking off of Lego's Botanical collection. And I guess I'll show you real quick the box so you can kind of see some of the others that were there. I think I picked this up at Five Below for $3 or $4, and it's really nice. 66 pieces for this one. I picked the Lily because the swords in it are pink. And it had some really interesting Technic pieces in green as well. So I was hoping that maybe these would match colors, and they do. But some of the other ones that interested me were the Dahlia, which has some gears in it in an orange color. I'm not sure what orange, as well as a Batwing in Mata green, and those really cool long rubbery spikes that look to be like a flesh tone or maybe like a light coral. And then also the Camellia, which has some Technic panels in green as well that I don't think Lego has made, but maybe they have. So with that said, the next question, will you be open to commissions in the future, and are you planning on setting up a shop? And this was asked by Mischievous Spectre. They will reappear here in just a few minutes. And yes, my answer is yes to both. I already have a lot of people reaching out to me in my DMs, and you absolutely can as well for commissions. Currently, I am not taking commissions just because I want to get a quality of product that meets the standard that I have. And so a mask like this, for example, the color match is perfect on this. I am super satisfied. But the mask itself is slightly translucent, and although that is true for some Bionicle masks as well, where you hold them up to the light and you'll actually see light come through it, it's not the standard that I want. I want to try and make the masks as opaque as I possibly can. I do understand that resin is not plastic, it's not exactly the same, so there may be some kind of lingering translucency, but that piece specifically doesn't match the quality that I want to sell to other people or to provide to other people. That said, I'm going to still use it. I think it came out excellent. The second question, do I plan on having a shop? Yes, I actually have a website currently, though it is not open to the public just yet. I want to kind of move some things around before I release the link for that, and then you guys will be able to check that out, and that is where you'll be able to buy if I do like mask drops in the future or produce other types of products, and you may also be able to request commissions through there as well. But for now, if you're interested in commissions or just want to reach out if you have questions about, you know, and ask me anything about resin casting or about just what my process is or what I might make in the future, go ahead, feel free to reach out in my DMs anywhere you can find me. Instagram, again, Discord, you'll find my links for those in the description. You'll also find me on Facebook and other places as well. But those are my main two sources of communication with the community. So yes, to answer your question, both. I will absolutely do commissions and absolutely have a shop here in the future. So the next question from Bionic _, and this question is, you have any plans to bring mocks and masks to conventions like Brick Fair? Folks are always looking for more Bionicle and Bionicle adjacent stuff to buy. Plus, it'd be really cool to see your Rahi displayed in person. And I would absolutely love to attend something like Brick Fair. I don't really live close to one. I think the closest I can get for conventions, for large-scale conventions, would be Chicago, and that's still several hours away if I were to drive. But I'm also a full-time caretaker for my mom at home, which means that I have to be able to plan around both of these things. But I'm also making mocks, I'm also casting, and so there are some other things on my plate as well. Mainly the caretaking at home is going to be the thing that limits me the most. But I do plan on getting there in the future. And if there is a point in the future where, you know, I can take her along for the ride and just make a weekend out of her, or take a 3-day trip or something to go sightsee and do cool things and then attend a convention as well, even if it's something small scale where I can just carry around some of my products, some of my mocks, some of my builds, I would love to reach out to the community and meet people. Would be it's absolutely a dream. So yes, but I don't have any plans in the near future. So the next question, I'm gonna yawn, is what's your from Max Nui on Discord, and their question is, what is your favorite mechanical movement? That's a hard question because I have loved just the interactions between like technic linkages all of my life. The Rahi are my favorite thing from Bionicle for a reason, and I was disappointed in 2006 when we moved away from functions. Even if I think that the functions from 2005 weren't all that inspired personally, there was still some really interesting builds and solutions for different problems in those years. 2006 still had really interesting stuff, don't get me wrong, and it has grown on me over time. That said, one that I recently did is this actual mud skipper build here that I have handy. It kind of sits on my desk and stares at me, and I really love this guy. Now, no, the colors are not accurate. I just had this on hand, and so this is the color choice that I did. But the function itself is that when it rolls along the ground, it moves its hands along. It kind of lifts them and pulls itself, but also flips its tail back and forth as well, so it kind of skitters across the ground. It's a really fun mechanism, and it's really neat to see kind of how everything goes together and how everything works. But in terms of like my favorite overall mechanism, I have a fondness for resetting bite type functions. This would be like the Muaka or Kanera or the Barog sets and their combination models. Essentially, not just a bite where the mouth opens, but also snaps shut and then the function resets. And you can actually see it on, if I can get this without knocking something over, the Kuma mock that I made, this being an alternate model for Muaka, where you can actually just pull the trigger on the back, and as you continue to pull, the bite releases, and then it just resets, and you can just do it indefinitely. That kind of stuff is probably by far my favorite, because those types of functions have a lot of steps in them, a lot of little things that all kind of have to come together to work. So just very fascinating stuff that I absolutely adore. Moving on to the next few pieces here. So that would probably be my favorite type of function overall. I think my next one here, let me see if I've got this right. Oh, did I put that on backwards? No, that looks fine. Okay. I think my next, what am I doing wrong here? Hold on. I'm trying to see exactly how, oh, okay, I see how it's connected. So this set has a 6 long bar with no interruptions. There are no stops on it anywhere, which is pretty cool, and I think that will be useful in the future, although it's very loose in these pieces, unfortunately. So that's probably the first piece that I think the quality has not been good on. Let me try and check it in Lego. Yeah, very, very loose. So not really something I would use in the future. Probably going to cause some problems with this as well, but we're just not super happy with that. I might switch this out for an official Lego piece, just so that I know it's going to hold together and it's going to provide me good friction. So we're going to go with, and just so I know it's Lego, I'm just going to use a white one. Why not? Yeah, I just threw that. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. And that's pretty loose too. So it might also be something to do with this connection, connecting to bar pieces in general. So actually, let me take that bar back out for a moment. Yeah, not impressed with that 6 long bar, unfortunately. So moving on. The next question from Skylar Luna, and this is from Discord. Given Bionicle's gender distribution, do you have any headcanon gender swaps? For characters, personally, I like to swap some of the Matron of each village to female-male, depending on the group. So since I mostly build creatures, and I don't actually do a whole lot when it comes to story building, like world building itself, I tend to leave that stuff up to my audience. When they build something that I have created, I like to let them, to allow them to actually choose, you know, what the character's name is going to be, what role it's going to play in their story. So I don't really personally work too in depth with the gender of my creations. For the most part, most characters that I make are usually some variation of self-mock, so they often go as how I identify, which is male. But that said, I also don't strictly follow the rule of Bionicle either, where like blue is girl, right? So I'll absolutely mix it up. If I'm making a Matron for a village, and I want them to be a girl, they're going to be a girl. If I want them to be a guy, they'll be a guy. If I want them to be something else, they'll be something else. And I have no preference with any of it otherwise. So what was the other part of the question, or did I already answer it? But yeah, if it does play any sort of story significance in some form of world building that I do, then I will lean into it obviously more and make something out of it. So the next question, again from Mischievous Spectre, what are your dream resin cast colors? So I would think that my holy grail for this would have to be, I'm trying to think. It would have to be one of the sand colors, right? Because, like, they've got such a nice aesthetic to them, something that's very calming about them, if that makes sense. And it's something that I have really resonated with for a very long time. When I was a kid, or not a kid, but when I was going through high school, I had my room in the basement. I actually chose to paint it with kind of a sand purple-like color. I didn't do that because Bionicle. I had no sand purple pieces or anything, but it was just a color that really was just calming. It was relaxing, right? It was a basement room, you know, so the lighting down there was kind of dark, and so it was just a way to kind of brighten the room up without it being overwhelming and right in your face. So I really find pastel type colors and sand colors very relaxing. So they're probably my main goal. Bright yellow would be a fun one. The modern coral color would also be a really good one. I love the color coral in general. So I think that would be an excellent one to work with. Let me see if, did I do something wrong here? I did, yes. Ooh, I'm gonna have to see if I can get this off of here now, because I'm using their bar piece. I got it, that's all right. But I missed a part right in the very front with this little lime disc here. So it's supposed to go on just like that. And then this is supposed to go on. So what's interesting here is that this is two pieces, just a regular 2x2 round plate with an axle hole, but the other one is a plate with hollow holes and studs on both sides. So that's really nice, because that could be a very useful piece in the future. And it looks to be a plate in thickness. There are some studs in here too that have studs on both sides and their bracket thickness in between them. One of the studs is hollow, but unfortunately not the other one, so you can't put a bar all the way through it. But still a really useful piece. And I see, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those in here, which seems like a very fun piece to mess around with. So I'm very excited to use that one in the future. But yeah, so those would be my like main pieces for the future. I think next, let me see if I can get this all the way on here, or if I need to leave a little bit of extra room. Ooh, this looks like it's gonna be a little bit finicky in one of these spots. Oh, I see what's going on. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I'm looking at the instructions here at the same time. So one interesting piece that this has is these sword pieces in pink. I don't know if that's a match for any Lego pink. It does look pretty similar. I just don't have any pieces right in front of me. I'm not going to go dig through my box for anything like that, but it's a really nice color, and there's 4 of these in here as well. I don't think anything goes into this bar in the center though, so I'm trying to get it. Oh, okay, that the hole in it is not hollow. I thought it was, so I think I'm doing something slightly wrong. I may have missed a piece. I don't see it. Oh, I did. There's a steering wheel piece that I missed. I'm very bad at this. That's all right though. So what I need to do is I need to pull, oh Lord, that green disc off again. I don't know if I can get this apart. Hold on. There it goes. Sort of. All right. So I need to put this on here. No, this on here. Like that. And then this face down. So it goes right in the center. And then this. So it's definitely a little bit of an interesting build there, but it does work. And that looks like good spacing there. All right. So, let's see here. What do I got next? From Skeptic Sinker 93. This might be too risky to ask based on how ambitious it sounds, and I am afraid to ask it due to anything I say about it turning into a witch hunt. This is a weirdly phrased question, so I do apologize for that. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. But would it be possible sometime in the future to cast 2003 Matron parts? My answer to that is yes. I actually plan on doing so hopefully very soon. Yesterday, in fact, I was thinking exactly how I would go about casting or making molds for the hip piece from the 2003 Matron. But Matron in general, 2003 and 2001, would be builds that I would absolutely love to custom resin cast parts for, to make parts in colors we never saw, that we never got, and also to support more colors as well. So maybe like some Metro, McDonald's Matron type bodies or arms or something. Would be a lot of fun. With that said, I would also plan on, of course, doing the green and black Matron for 2003, since we never got those. And I think that those would be accepted by the community pretty readily as well. So the next question from Myotis is, what's your favorite Rahi mock that isn't one of yours? So this one's difficult. I don't know right off the top of my head. There are a lot of absolutely incredible builders out there in the community. I bookmark a lot of different Rahi and just builds in general that I see that I find really fascinating, or that I could learn something from or take inspiration from on Instagram a lot. So I could probably maybe look through there and find something, but I don't know if I have like a true favorite. I tend to like the building styles of certain types of builders. As you guys know, my building style is basically classic stuff. Yes, I could build more modern stuff if I wanted to. I could learn, some like hyper modern types of building techniques and do really interesting stuff. But one of the main reasons I like building classic stuff, other than just being my passion, is that also it's stuff that other people can more easily replicate, right? Many of those pieces were obviously produced in the millions. It doesn't take modding of parts. That doesn't mean I strictly use older, pieces and stuff like that, but it does mean that I tend to lean towards parts that have a lot of uses and have a lot of reusability, if that makes sense. So that someone who maybe wants to make my Rahi or whatever doesn't have to actually go out of their way to buy many pieces, because most of the pieces that I would use can be reused over and over and over again, if that makes sense. So I don't know if I have a favorite from anybody else that I can just name off the top of my head, but I do know that there are some really incredible builders out there, and there's some just excellent and stunning works to be seen. So yeah, that's really all I can think of with that one. So the next question from Ori, #1 Velica Apologist. That's a fun name. Do you have plans to resin cast other parts, weapons, unique pieces? Yes, actually. As I kind of mentioned and alluded to before with the resin casting of like Matron parts, I plan on especially weapons. Since I am a Rahi builder, I often lean on a lot of older weapons. Tahu's Fire Sword is a fan favorite. Liwa Nuva's Air Katanas are my personal favorite weapon. So I would love to have access to those in more colors, just in general. And since I can produce something that is near ABS quality from resin casting, it means that I can produce parts that are very durable. If I was making like dark turquoise Liwa axes or Rakshi flame staff pieces for like feathers and stuff, like there's so much room here for the answer is yes. That's all I can say. I also want to do like Anika torso pieces and do some more support for Anika era pieces, and since the Anika build kind of overtook several years of Bionicle, it means that there would be a lot more flexibility in those parts. I also plan on casting like some custom parts that I have designed, as well as even potentially doing some sculpts of pieces that I can then cast in the future as well. So from Instagram, we have Dubstep Gutter 760, and they ask favorite type of Matoran. Also, I just put that on the wrong spot. So my answer to this question has to be the 2001 McDonald's Matoran. I have they're just sentimental to me, honestly. They have been a part of my life ever since they came out. Although I never personally was able to get a McDonald's Matoran from McDonald's because they were only at our local McDonald's for like 2 weeks total. I did have friends that ended up picking some up. I also knocked the piece off and it fell. Oh no. Right next to me. It's all good. We're safe. But yeah, so they're just also in general, I think as a product design, the McDonald's Matoran are nearly perfect because you kind of have to look at it through several lenses, right? For one thing, you're talking about designing a product that has to be safe for basically kids of all ages. It doesn't mean that like kids are going to be able to get a hold of those, but you can't guarantee either that McDonald's is going to be responsible enough to make sure to give kids of the appropriate age something they can't like choke on, right? So making something that has an aesthetic like the McDonald's Matoran, like these little guys here, that is not only a good looking build that is simple to build as well, but is also compatible with what was at the time a huge franchise, right? Bionicle was hugely popular in 2001, and to have it have a function or a feature of some kind with like the disc throwing, to have it actually be able to be used by a single individual to play around with at the table while they're eating, but also have parts that, you know, like I said, kids don't choke on. I'm kind of retreading my old steps, but you get the point that I'm getting at here. They're absolutely incredible feats of design, in my opinion, and I think that they're honestly some of the best McDonald's toys we ever had, even from the outside looking in, as a perspective of a, you know, non-Bionicle collector. Someone's going to have a lot of fun with those pieces. At the time, the masks were exclusive. In fact, all the pieces were exclusive. So yeah, absolutely fantastic designs, fantastic builds. And my very first, I keep knocking these little green or yellow things off of the flower here, so they're kind of not staying on so hot. Definitely an interesting build. I think this one's a little finicky. Gonna go ahead and put the last pieces on this flower here, and that's what that looks like. Kind of a mess. I need to fiddle with it more because it's very hard to orient those hot air balloon pieces and get them attached correctly without knocking off all of those yellow innard pieces. You can see I've already knocked 3 of them off in there. So do I recommend it? For the parts, absolutely. Just the pink sword pieces alone, and of course those like double-sided studs and stuff for like $3, or it might have been $4, I don't know. But that seems like a really reasonable deal. I think it was 3 because the other thing I bought was $5 and I spent a little over 8, so after tax I think about $3 or $3.50 for 66 pieces, including a bunch of Mata green axles, and there's actually spare pieces here too, spare axles that didn't go used, a single hollow stud that didn't go used unless I completely missed it. So yeah, with the next question, so from Cali Rainbow Recluse off Instagram, they ask, it kind of smells bad, don't it? So that they're talking about the resin, or I guess the resin casting process in general. Yes, to a degree, but also no. There are different brands of resin out there. There's a lot of stuff on the market today that's low odor. That said, when you're working with resin, you're also going to be wearing some safety equipment when it comes to like a respirator, or at the very least like a dust mask, something where you're not going to breathe the vapors in. And also you're going to be wearing eye protection. You're going to be wearing gloves, latex-free gloves, things like that. So there's not a lot of hazard there, so long as you treat it with respect, of course. And when you are wearing like a dust mask, even a dust mask, but a respirator, honestly, you don't even smell it. At least I don't. And you also want to make sure to ventilate the room, you know, just have a fan blowing and maybe a window open, your screen in front of your window, what have you. Or do it outdoors if you want as well. But yeah, it's not too bad. The last question here from Frosty Mox. Did you face any problems that someone without any knowledge wouldn't even be aware of? And were those problems solved? Little bit hard question for my brain to wrap around, but again, yes. At the end of the day, when it comes to resin casting, if you've never done it before, it's new to you, right? There are questions you're gonna have answers to, and there are a lot of questions that are already going to be answered by the community, because there are hundreds of thousands of people in the world that resin cast, even outside of Bionicle, right? That do this for a living, that do this as a hobby, that have asked basically any question, any problem you might face, they've likely faced it too. So resources like Reddit and like YouTube are fantastic. They're just great when you want to learn this stuff. That said, you are going to run into problems too that you weren't expecting. Sometimes good, sometimes these problems do good things. And I can give an example of that. And some of the problems are bad as well. Some problems are also brand specific. So as an example, I'll go through a few of mine. The silicone brand that I bought, which is called BB Dino, it's very temperamental. The actual silicone itself is good quality, but it reacts with way more stuff than most other silicone brands do, including basically any type of clay, whether it's sulfur-free and silicone safe or not. It reacts with hot glue, so it does react with a lot of things. That said, there are ways around a lot of these problems. Not everything is going to be perfect. Some of the products you make or cast or do are just going to go to waste. They're going to come out wrong, and that's just something you have to accept, right? Like any project, things will go wrong. That's a part of the risk. But you don't let that stop you from starting. You just address the problem when it comes up, right? And just try to prepare for your best, to your best ability, for problems you think might happen. What happens if I spill the resin? How can I clean it up? Well, you can get some sawdust, or you can get maybe like some cornstarch or something, just kind of soak it up and have some solvents on hand, like rubbing alcohol, acetone, mineral spirits, etc. And some of these things will be handy just in general when it comes to casting anyway. So you might as well have them on hand because it can't hurt to have them. The next one that I can think of, I also figured out that adding acrylic paint to the resin when I'm working with it will actually thicken up the resin quite a lot, which means I have to thin the resin back out. It also cuts the cure time in about half, but it also cuts the working time. So that's also a balance that I have to kind of extend, because I have to think, okay, if I'm using acrylic paint to color my resin, but it then makes the resin thicker, I'm going to have more problems with bubbles. So if I can thin the resin out, that should help with removing bubbles, because the bubbles have less resistance going through a thinner liquid. It's like if you shake up a bottle of water versus shaking up a bottle of like maple syrup, right? One is obviously going to capture and hold bubbles for a very long time, and the water, if it's like spring water or something, or diluted water, distilled water, I mean, then the bubbles will nearly instantaneously float to the top and pop, right? And so you're kind of just trying to play to the strengths of both things. Thick resins have benefits, but thin resins also have benefits, so you're trying to find kind of a balancing act, as I mentioned before. I learned with my brand of resin, which is called Shabibi, that you can actually mix isopropyl alcohol into your part A of your resin, and that will help to thin the resin out, and it will still cure. That gives you a longer working time, but the cure time is still roughly the same as the baseline, which is 24 hours, or it might even still be shorter. Yesterday, I did a cast at about 10 p.m., close to 11, and I was able to pull those out this morning at around 9, so that would have been less than 12 hours. And yeah, I was able to pull the masks out. Now, they're very soft when they come out, because your cure time and your full cure are different things. When it comes to working with resin, there's basically 3 time frames you have to think about: your work time, your demold time or your cure time, and then your full cure. So work time is how long you have to actually mix the resin, play around with it, and pour it before it needs to go into the pressure pot. With my resin, it's 40 minutes. So if I go over that 40 minutes, then it might not pour so easily, or it may not pour at all. And this is all temperature dependent too. I don't pay too much attention to the temperature because there are other effects of that. But sometimes you can heat your resin up. There are things you can do. I'll let you look that stuff up on online on your own time, of course, because I am not an authority on any of this. But it is definitely something that's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not too bad. That said, when it comes to casting, what I have learned is that I would pull the masks out at about 21 hours. The mask would still be soft, just like they would be at 24 hours, but it'd be a good time for me to start cutting off the funnels. When it comes to cast pieces, and I might have one here. Yeah, I do have one here, in fact, I can show. There are a couple of things you're going to deal with before you actually clean the mask up and have it ready for production. So like with this Matatu here, you can see that there's a funnel attached to the back of it where I actually filled the resin in. That's easiest to cut when the mask is still soft. And as you can see here, it is still relatively soft. So I can cut this off pretty easily with an X-Acto knife. The flashing, on the other hand, is typically easy to do when the mask is like medium hardness to like fully hard, right? So around the cure time to the full cure time is when you're going to have the best, the cleanest removal of flashing. Flashing is the little thin bits of papery resin like this stuff in here. When the masks are soft, it's more rubbery, so it doesn't separate from the mask as cleanly. But there are, like I said, some balancing things you can do here. Maybe you'll get used to casting or cleaning them up, you know, like this. Something I figured out yesterday, just kind of by accident doing an experiment, is that the brand of resin that I got can actually be manipulated under hot water, and this is really cool. The reason I like this is because if a mask is allowed to fully cure, it gets to like ABS type hardness, right? I think I have one over here. Yeah, I can show with that. So like this mask here is the very first mask I cast. I think that was 7 days ago. And you can see that this mask is very hard, right? If I squeeze it, it has about the same give as an ABS mask, maybe a little bit more. But if I were to like send this to a customer or something in the mail and it like warps or it gets something gets set on top of it or whatever, I found out that if you actually run this under hot tap water, it'll return back to this soft kind of structure again, and it'll reform itself. It'll self-correct. And then in about 5 or 10 minutes, it will get back to the full cure hardness. So I'm not resetting the clock when I do this. I'm just giving myself a brand new window to do any kind of cleanup. If I cast maybe 100 masks or something and I need to cut the funnels off, but they harden too quick, then cutting the funnels off becomes a pain, becomes a nightmare. And if I can run it under hot water and then cut the funnel off like it's butter again, lay it on the counter, and then suddenly it firms up in 5 minutes and I've got a mask ready to go, that's incredible stuff, right? Every brand is, of course, going to be different. Every brand is going to behave differently. But so it is nice to learn and nice to experiment. And I encourage experimentation as well. Just as long as you're being safe, practicing safe behavior around your whatever products you buy, whether it be silicone or resin. Make sure to read any sort of booklets, any paper that comes with it, any material data sheets. That's going to tell you basically everything that you need to know. If it comes in contact with the skin, what type of solvents to use to clean it up. Because you might be tempted to just rub it on a piece of paper towel or something and say, oh, okay, it's gone, I don't see it anymore. But that's not true, right? You got to go and clean that stuff off, right? Which again is why you wear gloves, you wear eye protection, and you wear, you know, a face mask of some kind. You don't want to breathe the vapors in. The materials are toxic. You don't want it getting on your skin for the same reasons. The materials are toxic, could leach into your skin. And resin specifically has a property that can desensitize you to it over time. So the more contact with resin you get, the worse your symptoms might become if you start developing like a rash or something. And there's also a subset of the population that's just naturally allergic to resin in general. So you may have a bad reaction to it the first time you use it. It's a small percentage, but it is still there. It is still notable. It's not zero, right? So that's pretty much it for this video. If you did like the video, hopefully it was fun, hopefully it was entertaining, and hopefully you learned something from it. I, of course, enjoyed making it, and if you have any questions that you would like to ask or be featured in a future video like this, don't hesitate to check out my Instagram and my Discord in the links in the description below. And of course, you can always ask questions in the comments below this video as well. And I'll see you all in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe. Take care.